welcome to the channel. I'm Summer. Today I'm going to be showing you how to get the most volume in your layered haircut to show off all the movement your cut brings. We're going to be using a blowout brush today as well, which for at home is always my go-to option for this type of blowout. I'll be taking my 17 years spent as a hairstylist and sharing with you my perfected techniques that get you hair that lasts for days. A big thank you to Skin Research Institute for sponsoring a portion of today's video. With that being said, let's get started. All right, to begin, we are going to first start off with our product application, as that is key for prepping the hair for any good blow dry. With this, because we're gonna be creating a lot of bounce and shape and movement with the layers, I'm going to be using, it's just a volume mousse, but this one specifically is L'Oreal's Techniarch. I like it because it's also got a little bit of a gel consistency, so it's really flexible as far as creating like shape and bend. So I just do a little bit at a time, not much at all. And we're gonna apply that all through the head. And I like starting at the top first. You wanna make sure you get this really well into those bangs and the face frame. We're gonna apply some to the back. Just a little bit more. So typically I actually like to start on top, then I'll go into the midsection, and then we'll work it down last into those ends. Scrunch that in there nice and good. So if you are somebody who has frizz, you will want to use some sort of anti-humidity spray or cream. This is just Ouai's anti-frizz cream. It's nice and light, and I'm not using a ton. If you have really thick or coarse hair, you might want to use something heavier, and I'll link some options in the description. And then again, with that leftover frizz cream, just work that in around the face. And then once your products are in, before we start our blow dry, we are going to comb everything through. This makes sure to get all the product evenly distributed through the hair. You could use a wet brush, you can use your comb, whatever you're comfortable with. And just make sure that that is blended in. So I'm going to be using the Style Wrap Pro from Skin Research Institute for her blow dry today. This is a great tool for styling your hair at home to get those salon style blow dries, but without the price tag of them. With the Style Wrap Pro, you get a total of 7 attachments, allowing for any and all hair types to get the perfect blow dry, as well as creating different looks. You get 3 brush attachments that allow for smooth looks or voluminous ones like we're creating today. The paddle brush attachment is great to use when creating smoother straight looks. The oval brush is great for creating classic blow dries and more volume that you can get through the ends. And the smaller round brush attachment, it's going to be key for creating our blow dry today. You're able to get those really nice bouncy blowout waves too with the barrels that use the Kawanda technology, which is always so fun to me, watching the hair wrap around the barrels so effortlessly. It's very fun. With the blow dryer weighing barely over 1 pound, it also makes for a great choice for a less exhausting blow dry. One of my favorite features about the dryer is that it folds as well, so it's very easy to travel with, but it also still gives you the option to use it like a traditional dryer when you put the concentrator nozzle on, so you can use it with your traditional round brush. It's a very nice all-in-one tool. You have several heat and speed settings to choose from. It's an array of attachments and lightweight. You will be left with an endless hairstyle option for days. You can find the Style Wrap Pro linked below in the description and pinned comment, along with a discount code that can be used along with any other promo they are running. Thank you again to Skin Research Institute for sponsoring today's video. All right, so to start off our blow dry, we're gonna, for the blow dry in general, be using a total of 3 attachments. This is what I call like my rough dry blow dryer. It also does the little flyaways for smoothing out your hair, but we've got it set to where the air is just gonna come straight out of that center to get a good rough dry. We're also going to be using the classic oval brush attachment, as well as this little guy the round brush, which is going to come in handy, very much so for our bangs and face frame. So what we're gonna do starting off for our rough dry, the point of a rough dry is to get the moisture out of the hair, and to create volume, we're gonna lift the hair up in sections just with our fingers to create some volume and height at the root. If you blow dry the hair when it's too wet, it's gonna take you a lot longer to get it. And then I feel like sometimes it creates like a product feel. So just work that dryer around the hair, rough drying, lifting up with your fingers some. You don't want it to be like 100% dry or anything like that. You still want some dampness so we can create that shape. But usually I say a good like 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 5, depending on how much hair you have for your rough dry. All right, so now that we have a good amount of the hair rough dried, I also really try, you could see me lifting up like this underneath. I try to work that decently well in the rough dry process, just because that is like, this is the long part of blow drying. I did not rough dry the bangs too much, just because we actually want those fairly damp for when we go to dry them later. And if you have to respritz them at home, that's more than fine, but I don't typically like to rough dry this too much, just because we need it more damp when the time comes. So we are going to be working in just traditional, what I call horseshoe sections. We don't need to get all fancy with it. You can just take the hair up in one go, but you don't want the sections like so crazy big because you want to be able to create enough shape. So usually it's about 2 to 3 fingers my section size will be, and you could also use your brush head as a guide. So let me show you what I mean by that. So I can see how much space we have here. So if you hold the brush up to it, if it's similar in width to the circumference of your brush, that's gonna allow you to work that through the hair really well to create all that shape. So we've got our first section, and all we're gonna do is just wrap this up nice and tight with a butterfly clip. Very simple. If the hair around your face is bothering you, you can clip that back, but she doesn't care today, of course. So to do this blow dry, it is actually quite easy. There's still a little time consuming just because you are working to create the shape, but because it's all in one tool, I really love a blowout brush for kind of any blow dry these days, if I'm being honest. But it's just one tool, so you hold it all in one hand, so it's very easy to work the shape. So I'll show you a practice run first before I turn this on, because I can't really talk to you live while I'm doing it. You're gonna just place the dryer under the hair, and what you're going to do is, if you want more volume, you're gonna lift up with it. Let me turn her. I feel like you can't see that enough. So you would place it under the hair, and if you want more volume, you're gonna come up as much as possible, and you're gonna roll that into the brush, wrapping the hair. If you want more smoothness, but you still want like a little bit of lift, you're just gonna come straight out with it and roll up. So volume, lift up, smoothness, you can just lift straight out. So you'll place it in, do it at the angle you want. You're gonna come in. I like to rotate 1 to 3 times, and then you're gonna wrap that up into the hair. So I'm gonna show you guys now real time. So another thing too, guys, the longer you have the hair wrapped around the brush, you're gonna create more of that bend and shape. So I like to hold it wrapped up on the head about a good 10 seconds at a time, and then I'll let it back out again, run it through the ends, and then wrap you, and I kind of wrap again to the scalp, and then I'll repeat these same steps until this section is fully dry. All right, so while I have this in here, once the hair is fully dry, I will then keep it wrapped up like this, and I switch over to the cool shot on your blow dryer. What that does is it allows the hair to cool down in this nice rounded wrap shape. So when you go to let it out, you're going to see a little bit more bounce and bend. So I always recommend the Cool Shot. As you can see here, we have like this nice flow and bounce to it, but when you wrap you cool it down. When it's wrapped up and you cool it down, I'm like fumbling over my words today, it's gonna lock in this volume. So when this cools on its own, let out of the brush, it's gonna flatten out a little bit more. So it helps preserve your volume for a little bit longer. So I'm gonna repeat this same step on the other side, and then we'll come back into the next section. So now that that is dry, we're gonna work our way into the next section. And one thing I actually like to do to help to preserve the volume is, instead of taking all of this and letting it completely fall, I will take just one section at a time. If you are familiar with my channel, you've probably seen me mention this. So you're just gonna come in and let out only the hair that you're going to be blow drying. This way, this damp hair isn't resting on your dry hair below. Everything is kept separate, so no moisture flattens this out. So for now, we're gonna still use the oval shape brush because these pieces are longer. I need the width of the oval shape brush, and as we get into the shorter layers, we're gonna switch to the smaller round shape, so that way we get the most volume and bounce out of this blow dry. But otherwise, we're gonna just be repeating the same steps as we did below. We're gonna come grab a little bit more hair. And then if you guys recognize this mannequin, I cut her probably, I think it was 2 videos ago, maybe 3. And you guys voted that I should have trimmed her length on the bottom. I'll leave the video linked if you want to check it out. But originally her length was a little bit longer and you guys voted to cut it. So I cut it before filming this one because I desperately needed it. So if you recognize her or you want to check out her cut, I will leave that video linked below. And then I want to remind you guys again, if you want more volume, you're going to lift up. If you want more smoothness, you're just going to lift straight out. All right, so now we're gonna start moving into the sides. Okay, so we're just gonna let out that piece. Similar section as we did in the back. Remember, you don't want it too wide. Think of the size of the brush. And so for her 2 front side sections, I'm still going to use the oval attachment just because these are longer. And then after I get those dry, we are gonna start incorporating in that smaller round brush head. So I'm gonna repeat the same process that I did all prior in the back. And then when I come back in, you'll get to see how we're gonna incorporate that smaller brush head. Another thing too I like about this dryer is the tip that you can grab on with your other hand, your fingertips. That way you're not overheating your hand. If it touches the dryer, it just helps you give a little bit more control. So what I like to do when finishing out the sides is I will switch over to that Cool Shot, and then I like to work the blow dryer and I will let it curve in a little bit towards the face through these bottom side layers. Now we are gonna come in and we're gonna start, because we're gonna get into these shorter layers, we are going to switch over to our smaller brush head. So we're just, our smaller brush head. We're gonna pop this off And we're just gonna put on this nice little round brush attachment. This is going to be really nice for the bang area, but also for the back section where we wanna create a little bit more volume. So we're gonna come around to the back and we're gonna take our first section back here. So to show you the difference in length, we have a much shorter layer here. It's still a little long, but we wanna really create a nice swoop. So that's why I'm gonna switch to that shorter round brush. So I'm gonna actually split this to be a little bit smaller. I don't want it too wide because again, how wide our sections are, like how thick they are, you also don't want them to be much wider than the actual brush because they're gonna spill out over the sides. So this smaller brush can be a little bit more challenging at first to use. I do like using it though for shorter pieces. So I'll use it in my back sections because those hairs are shorter and I want them to kind of pop up more. But what I like to do with it is I'll have it on and I will run it through the hair first a few times with it off, just as I'm doing now, so you can really detangle the section. And then you'll play around to get the feel for it. So you'll lift up the same and you're gonna wrap that hair just as you did the others, but you're gonna have a lot more bend and bounce with this because you're able to wrap the hair a few more times. But just take your time, don't get frustrated. Practice makes perfect, but I promise you the smaller option does make all the difference. So I'm gonna show you guys exactly how I do that. So we're just gonna place it in and roll it completely. You're still gonna hold it in place the same amount of time. Look at how much more bouncy that is. Now, somebody might feel like this is way too extreme. This still will fall a little bit, but I always say with these types of blow dries, it's almost better to do it like too much on day one because it's gonna fall. And usually when you do these blowouts anyways, they last you a couple of days. So I always say, even if it's too much on day one, it's better to give yourself some nice bounce and lift because it is just naturally going to fall. And if you wanted to, we could have probably in this section done it with this smaller brush if you wanted a little bit more bounce and body, but this gives you an idea to show you the difference really between the two. So this is our small brush head, and then down here was the oval shape. So what I like to do is to finish basically the back area first, and then we're gonna come in and I'm gonna show you how you get that front bang in the face frame, how we get a lot of bounce and bend. So I'm gonna finish these two back sections and then we'll work into the very front. All right, so now that we have really all the back and the sides done, we are gonna start, actually just kidding, I have the very back crown. So I'm gonna do that, and on the crown, if you like extra volume, really just make sure you're lifting that straight up to create the most amount of volume that you possibly can. Okay, now we are ready for the front. I do want to make note, I don't like to touch any of the hair until after it's officially styled. Obviously, like, you know, on yourself, you're gonna touch it some naturally, just moving through the shape when you blow dry, but I try not to touch it much just so it can like extra cool down in that shape, and then we're gonna run our hands through it at the end. So now that we are to the front, and I'm also using medium heat, by the way. I rarely go like full heat on these dryers just because I don't really feel like you need to. But the medium heat is enough. If you have really coarse hair, you might need to bump that up. So we're back to like our regular parting here of a middle part. And she's dried out a little bit, so I am gonna spritz her back down. If there's one thing mannequin hair knows how to do, it is dry. Okay, so when we are doing our bang area, and I will dry that first just because that's the exciting part here. We're gonna come in and just grab your bang section. So you've got like a little bit of a triangle that's similar to how I cut them. And drying the bangs doesn't need to be like overthought. It's very simple. You're gonna do a lot of the same steps as you have been. What we're gonna first do, I'm gonna walk you through it first before turning on my dryer. We have our small brush. You're gonna come in, same as what you've been doing. You're gonna wrap all that hair and you're gonna hold it in place, and then you're gonna let it out. What then I like to do, because these are kind of a curtain bang that's split down the middle, I then will do individual sides where I'm coming over and across the face slightly, so I'm gonna get more of that swoop. I just found in my own experience, if I do it just all where they all come down, I don't know, I don't like how fluffy they get. So that's the way that I like to do them. So I will show you that again, but I'll actually do it this time. Another thing you can do too is work the dryer side to side on the section. This helps to also distribute the heat more evenly, and then we will move into our diagonals. So we've got that out. I'm gonna come in with my comb. And then we're gonna work going across the face. So the dryer is gonna come on the outside section of the hair, and you're gonna put it on the outside section, and you're gonna pull it across the face to the opposite side, wrapping that and holding it into place to get that curve going. So we've got a nice, good swoop and bounce here. And I usually let that sit, and I'll work my way down through the rest of the hair at a time. So now we're gonna focus on this outer section. And with this, I like to have everything coming out away from the face. So you're gonna place that in. I like to work it going forward a little bit first, and then we're gonna place it on the back side of that section, twist it and roll it all the way back to the head. And then you're gonna let that sit in place, and then you're gonna rotate it back out and let it fall. So we've grabbed the rest of the hair here, and we're gonna repeat these steps that I've been doing all blow dry long. And around the face, I like to have everything fall back away to just keep things nice and open. Okay, so we have just two last sections on the very top that I'm gonna just blow dry straight up and going back away from the face. I'm gonna repeat those same steps as I've been doing all blow dry. Lift up for volume. You could always just pull it straight out away from the face if you wanted more smoothness, but roll that into the brush to really get that bounce and bend. And then I will show you guys how I like to fluff through with my fingers instead with hairspray once we're done. Okay, so now that we have everything fully dry, what I like to do once it's all cooled down, I'll just simply run my hands through it, all through the hair. You can use a little oil if you want at this point, which I'm gonna actually do that. The oil is great if you have more dry hair. You do not need a lot, just a little tiny bit. And I'll go through that in my hands first, and we'll just run through the ends. So I'll show you the back. We have all those layers showing off, and then we're just gonna come through, run the hands through the hair, work the oil onto those ends, especially for those of you with maybe a little bit more dry or damaged hair. But look how much volume and shape we have throughout the hair. And like I said, if you wanted to use a smaller brush down lower, you can, but I wanted to show you guys the difference between how much more bend the smaller brush gets you and volume it creates versus that oval shape. So I'm gonna get her fully set and styled with some hairspray, and then I'll give you guys a nice final spin. All right, here is our finished and final look of our blow dry today. We've got all the bounce, all the bend, all the body in those layers. We use two brush heads from the Style Wrap Pro today. We use the oval in the lower sections and then the small round brush in those top sections to create more bounce and bend. Remember, prep, section, and make sure you are lifting and wrapping the hair into the brush to get the most shape out of your blow dry. Thank you again to Skin Research Institute for sponsoring today's video. You can find the Style Wrap Pro linked below in the description, so be sure to check it out. I will leave you with this video right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.